Picture this: a movie so shocking that audiences literally fled theaters in terror, leaving behind vomit and unconscious bodies. Imagine films so dangerous that governments worldwide banned them, destroyed prints, and threatened anyone who dared to screen them. These weren't just controversial movies, they were cinematic earthquakes that shattered moral boundaries and nearly brought the entire film industry to its knees. From religious groups calling for boycotts to real gang violence erupting in movie theaters, from directors receiving death threats to actors requiring police protection, these 25 films didn't just push the envelope, they incinerated it. Some destroyed careers overnight, others sparked international incidents, and a few even changed laws. But here's the twisted irony: the harder authorities tried to bury these movies, the more legendary they became. Today we're diving deep into Hollywood's darkest vault to uncover the forbidden films that almost destroyed the Dream Factory itself. Buckle up, because what you're about to discover will forever change how you see the golden age of cinema. And trust me, number 18 will leave you absolutely speechless. Peeping Tom. When Michael Powell unleashed Peeping Tom upon unsuspecting audiences in 1960, he committed career-ending with a single film reel. This British psychological nightmare didn't just tell the story of a killer, it forced viewers to become voyeuristic accomplices to murder. Mark Lewis, a timid photographer, transforms his camera into a weapon of death, documenting his victims' final moments with chilling precision. The film's revolutionary approach to horror placed audiences directly behind the killer's lens, making them unwilling participants in his twisted artistry. What made the film even more disturbing was its exploration of childhood trauma and psychological damage. Lewis's obsession with capturing fear stemmed from his own father's cruel experiments, where the young boy was subjected to psychological torture for scientific research. This backstory added layers of sympathy to a character who should have been purely repulsive, creating an uncomfortable moral ambiguity that critics found deeply unsettling. The backlash was swift and merciless. British critics unleashed a torrent of venom, branding the film as morally bankrupt and psychologically disturbing. Powell, once celebrated as a visionary filmmaker, watched his reputation crumble within days. Major distributors canceled contracts overnight, and theaters pulled the film after just weeks of disastrous box office performance. The financial losses were devastating. Powell never fully recovered professionally or personally from the disaster. Unlike Hitchcock's Psycho, which offered distance through stylization, Peeping Tom felt uncomfortably intimate and real. The film's exploration of cinema's own voyeuristic nature hit too close to home for an industry built on watching others. Powell had essentially created a mirror that reflected the audience's own complicity in screen violence, and they recoiled in horror at what they saw. Today, critics recognize it as a groundbreaking predecessor to modern horror, but its initial reception serves as a stark reminder of art's power to destroy those who dare to reveal uncomfortable truths. Baby Doll. Elia Kazan's adaptation of Tennessee Williams' provocative plays ignited a moral firestorm that engulfed 1950s America. Even before audiences witnessed a single frame, the marketing campaign's image of Carol Baker lounging in a crib with her thumb in her mouth had already sparked nationwide outrage. The film's sultry exploration of desire and manipulation in the American South proved too incendiary for conservative sensibilities. The story itself was a powder keg of sexual tension, featuring a child bride who remains unconsummated at 19, caught between her impotent older husband and a virile Sicilian business rival. The film's frank treatment of sexual frustration, marital dysfunction, and Southern Gothic decay created a perfect storm of controversy that would consume the nation's attention for months. Religious organizations, led by the powerful Catholic Legion of Decency, launched a coordinated assault against the film. Cardinal Spellman of New York took the unprecedented step of condemning it from the pulpit, urging Catholics to avoid it entirely. They condemned it as a grievous assault on Christian values and traditional morality. Multiple states imposed outright bans, while protesters formed picket lines outside theaters brave enough to screen it. Studio executives found themselves under intense pressure from both religious groups and government officials. The controversy became so heated that it transcended entertainment news, becoming a national debate about artistic freedom versus moral responsibility. Major newspapers ran editorials debating the film's impact on American youth, while women's groups split between those who saw it as empowering and those who viewed it as degrading to feminine virtue. Paradoxically, the uproar only intensified public curiosity. Theaters showing the film drew massive crowds, and the movie earned 4 Academy Award nominations, including recognition for Baker's fearless performance. The film's legacy demonstrates how controversy can simultaneously destroy and elevate a work of art, creating a complex relationship between censorship and success that Hollywood would exploit for decades to come. The Warriors. Walter Hill's stylized urban odyssey transformed movie theaters into war zones, proving that cinema's influence could extend far beyond the screen. Set in a dystopian New York City where gangs rule the night, the film follows a street crew's desperate journey home after being framed for murder. The movie's release coincided with a surge in real urban violence, creating a perfect storm of social tension and cinematic provocation. The film's distinctive visual style, with each gang sporting unique colors and themes like baseball uniforms or mime makeup, created an almost mythological approach to urban decay. This stylization, however, couldn't mask the very real violence that the film would inspire in theaters across America. Within days of its premiere, reports of theater violence began flooding in from across the country. Rival gangs treated screenings as neutral ground turned battleground, leading to brutal confrontations that left multiple casualties in their wake. In Los Angeles, 3 people were killed during or after screenings, while incidents in New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia resulted in dozens of injuries and arrests. Theater owners, faced with property damage and potential lawsuits, began pulling the film from screens or implementing unprecedented security measures. Some cities attempted complete bans, while others demanded the studio halt all advertising immediately. The National Association of Theater Owners issued emergency guidelines for screening the film, something they had never done before in their history. The studio's response was a panic scramble to contain the damage. They voluntarily pulled marketing campaigns and begged theater owners to increase security presence. But the controversy only fueled public fascination, transforming The Warriors into a box office phenomenon. Critics remained divided. Some condemned it as irresponsible incitement to violence, while others praised its mythological vision of urban decay. Crash. David Cronenberg's Crash represents perhaps the most disturbing exploration of human sexuality ever committed to film. This Canadian production delves into the twisted world of individuals who develop erotic obsessions with automobile accidents, transforming vehicular trauma into sexual pleasure. The film's unflinching examination of technology's impact on human desire created an unprecedented level of discomfort among viewers and critics alike. The story follows James Ballard and his wife Catherine as they encounter Vaughn, a charismatic prophet of automotive sexuality who stages elaborate recreations of famous car crashes. The film's exploration of the intersection between technology, sexuality, and death created a uniquely disturbing meditation on modern life that many found impossible to stomach. From its premiere at Cannes, Crash divided audiences with surgical precision. Some viewers walked out in disgust, while others defended it as a profound artistic statement about modern alienation. The British Board of Film Classification faced enormous pressure to deny the film a certificate, with politicians and moral watchdogs arguing that it glorified dangerous behavior. Several local councils banned it outright, while Canadian authorities pulled it from theaters amid public outcry. The film's defenders argued that Cronenberg's disturbing vision served as a necessary mirror to society's hidden obsessions and technological dependencies. They claimed the director was exposing uncomfortable truths about human nature in the digital age. Over time, Crash has been reevaluated as one of the most daring cinematic experiments of the 1990s, challenging audiences to confront the boundaries between pleasure and pain, technology and flesh. The Exorcist. William Friedkin's supernatural masterpiece didn't just frighten audiences. It physically touched them, with an intensity never before witnessed in cinema. This tale of demonic possession pushed religious and psychological boundaries so far that moviegoers began experiencing physical symptoms during screenings. Reports emerged of audience members fainting, vomiting, and requiring medical attention, transforming theaters into scenes of genuine chaos. The film's production was shrouded in mysterious incidents that only added to its terrifying reputation. A fire of unknown origin destroyed most of the interior sets, delaying production for 6 weeks. 9 people connected to the production died during or shortly after filming, including actors Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Maliaros. Strange mechanical failures plagued the set, and several cast members suffered injuries during the more intense sequences. Religious groups united in condemning the film as blasphemous and spiritually dangerous. Some communities attempted to ban it entirely, while others demanded extensive cuts before allowing local screenings. Threats poured in against young Linda Blair, who portrayed the possessed child, forcing her family to hire bodyguards. Theater owners implemented unprecedented safety measures, including hiring medical staff and providing special lighting to help people exit during intense sequences. Some cinemas provided vomit bags to patrons, while others hired counselors to help traumatize viewers. The film's marketing campaign deliberately exploited these reactions, using real footage of ambulances at theaters, despite the controversy, or perhaps because of it. The Exorcist became a massive commercial success and earned the distinction of being the first horror film nominated for Best Picture. Its legacy forever changed the landscape of supernatural cinema, proving that audiences craved experiences that challenged not just their comfort zones, but their very sanity. Deep Throat. The adult film industry had always operated in society's shadows, but Gerard Damiano's Deep Throat dragged explicit sexuality kicking and screaming into mainstream consciousness. This X-rated feature didn't just break taboos, it shattered them completely, presenting graphic sexual content with a level of humor and openness that shocked conservative America to its core. The film's marketing as a legitimate date movie for couples represented a seismic shift in how adult content was positioned. Newspaper advertisements appeared in mainstream publications, and celebrity endorsements came from unlikely sources, creating a crossover appeal that terrified moral guardians who saw it as evidence of America's spiritual decline. Conservative groups, religious leaders, and politicians mobilized immediately to suppress what they saw as a direct assault on traditional values. Legal battles erupted across the country as authorities raided theaters, confiscated film prints, and arrested managers brave enough to screen it. The stars and director faced relentless prosecution under obscenity laws that varied wildly from state to state. The most famous legal case occurred in Memphis, where distributors were prosecuted under federal obscenity statutes. The trial became a cause célèbre, with famous attorneys joining the defense team and turning the case into a broader debate about First Amendment protections for sexual expression. The controversy transcended entertainment journalism, becoming front-page news and sparking national debates about freedom of expression versus community standards. Ironically, the intense opposition only increased public curiosity, leading to massive box office success and paving the way for a brief mainstream acceptance of adult cinema in the 1970s. Caligula. Tinto Brass's epic exploration of Roman decadence, financed by Penthouse magazine, pushed the boundaries of mainstream cinema into uncharted territory. This ambitious production attempted to blend high art with explicit sexuality, creating an unprecedented hybrid that horrified critics and fascinated audiences in equal measure. The film's unflinching depiction of the notorious emperor's reign combined political intrigue, graphic violence, and hardcore adult material in ways that defied conventional categorization. Even before its release, Caligula was mired in production scandals. Respected actors like Malcolm McDowell, Helen Mirren, and Peter O'Toole claimed they had been deceived about the film's explicit content, with many stating they had no knowledge that hardcore sequences would be added during post-production. Multiple versions circulated with varying degrees of graphic material, creating confusion among distributors and audiences alike. The Motion Picture Association of America refused to assign it any rating, effectively banning it from mainstream theater chains. Different countries created their own edited versions, leading to a confusing array of cuts and censored releases worldwide. In some territories, the film was banned outright, while others allowed only severely truncated versions. The film's chaotic production became as notorious as its content. Power struggles between the director, producer, and financiers resulted in multiple competing versions, with hardcore footage inserted without the knowledge of several cast members. Despite the turmoil, Caligula found its audience among those seeking transgressive cinema that challenged conventional boundaries. Last Tango in Paris. Bernardo Bertolucci's intense psychological drama, starring Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider, created a firestorm of controversy that continues to burn decades later. The film's explicit exploration of sexuality and power dynamics in a doomed relationship between strangers pushed the boundaries of what mainstream cinema could depict. However, revelations years later about the production methods cast a dark shadow over the film's artistic achievements. The story follows Paul, a middle-aged American grieving his wife's suicide, who begins an anonymous sexual relationship with Jean, a young Parisian woman in an empty apartment. Their encounters, meant to be free of personal history, gradually reveal the destructive power of grief and desire. Brando's raw, improvised performance drew from his own personal pain, creating an intensity that felt uncomfortably real. In Italy, the film faced immediate criminal prosecution, with authorities banning it outright and filing charges against the director. American censors threatened the dreaded X rating, while several states imposed their own prohibitions. Critics and audiences found themselves deeply divided. Some hailed it as a breakthrough in cinematic honesty, while others condemned it as exploitative and degrading. The controversy intensified when it was revealed decades later that certain scenes were filmed without the full informed consent of actress Maria Schneider. This revelation transformed discussions about the film from artistic merit to questions of ethics and exploitation in filmmaking. Despite its problematic production history, the film's impact on cinema's willingness to explore complex sexuality remains undeniable, though forever tainted by questions of how that impact was achieved. Possession. Andrzej Żuławski's psychological horror masterpiece exists at the intersection of marital drama and supernatural nightmare. This French-West German co-production follows a woman's descent into madness during a bitter divorce, escalating from domestic tension into a grotesque exploration of obsession and alienation. The film's graphic violence, disturbing sexual imagery, and relentless psychological intensity created an experience so overwhelming that many viewers found it impossible to complete. The cast, particularly Isabelle Adjani, threw themselves into their roles with such commitment that the line between performance and breakdown often seemed to disappear. British authorities quickly classified Possession as a video nasty, a designation reserved for films deemed too extreme for public consumption. The classification led to bans and severe cuts in multiple countries, with censors citing concerns about the film's psychological impact on viewers. Audiences and critics who managed to see it were divided between those who recognized its artistic ambitions and those who dismissed it as pretentious exploitation. Beneath the surface chaos lies a powerful metaphor for the trauma of divorce and the alienation of modern life. Żuławski's personal experience with divorce informed the film's emotional intensity, while the Cold War setting added layers of political paranoia. Today, Possession is recognized as a cult masterpiece that uses horror elements to explore profound themes of human disconnection and emotional devastation. It remains a powerful reminder that the most terrifying horrors are often rooted in the human psyche itself. The Devil's Advocate. By the late 1990s, Hollywood had become more comfortable with controversial subject matter, but Taylor Hackford's supernatural thriller still managed to provoke significant outrage. Starring Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, the film blends supernatural horror with a biting critique of corporate greed and moral corruption. The story follows a young lawyer lured into a powerful law firm that turns out to be run by Satan himself. The film's mix of religious imagery, explicit sexuality, and violence led to censorship in several countries. Christian organizations called for bans, accusing it of blasphemy and sacrilege. The controversy was further complicated by a lawsuit over the use of copyrighted artwork in a pivotal scene, resulting in the alteration of home video releases. Al Pacino's over-the-top performance as Satan became iconic, delivering memorable monologues about God, free will, and the nature of evil. The film's themes of corporate corruption and moral compromise resonated with audiences increasingly concerned about the influence of money and power on society. Adding to the controversy was a copyright lawsuit over unauthorized use of artwork in a crucial scene. The sculpture Ex Nihilo by Frederick Hart appeared in the film without permission, leading to legal action that required alterations to home video releases. Despite these issues, The Devil's Advocate found an audience and has been praised for its provocative themes and powerhouse performances. Its legacy is a testament to the enduring power of films that are unafraid to question society's deepest taboos. Romance. Catherine Breillat's unflinching examination of female sexuality challenged every convention about how cinema could depict intimate relationships. This French film follows a woman's awakening as she seeks fulfillment outside her passionless relationship. The film's unflinching depiction of unsimulated intercourse, including scenes with adult film stars, led to bans and censorship battles worldwide. The film's explicit content was matched by its intellectual ambitions, creating a unique hybrid that both fascinated and repelled audiences. Breillat's approach to depicting female sexuality was unprecedented in its frankness, showing aspects of women's sexual experience that mainstream cinema had never dared to explore. In some countries, romance was banned outright, or only shown in heavily edited versions. Critics and audiences were deeply divided. Some praised the film's honesty and emotional complexity, while others condemned it as obscene. International censors struggled with how to classify a film that combined hardcore content with serious artistic intentions. Despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy, Romance has been recognized as a daring, provocative work of feminist cinema. It remains a lightning rod for debates about sexuality on screen, proving that art that challenges societal norms will always provoke strong reactions. Basic Instinct. Paul Verhoeven's erotic thriller reignited the genre for a new generation, while simultaneously sparking outrage from multiple directions. Sharon Stone's iconic performance as the enigmatic novelist Catherine Tremell created one of cinema's most memorable femme fatales, but the film's explicit sexuality and controversial portrayal of bisexual characters drew fire from religious groups and LGBTQ activists alike. The film follows Detective Nick Curran as he investigates a brutal ice pick murder that leads him into the dangerous world of Catherine Tremell, whose books seem to predict real murders. As Nick becomes sexually entangled with Catherine, the line between investigator and victim begins to blur. Protests erupted outside theaters worldwide, with religious organizations condemning the film's graphic content and LGBTQ groups criticizing what they saw as negative stereotyping of bisexual characters. Several countries, including Singapore and Ireland, initially refused to allow the film's release altogether. Despite the outrage, or perhaps because of it, the movie became a massive international hit. Stone's performance transformed her into an international star and created a cultural touchstone that influenced fashion, advertising, and popular culture for decades. Verhoeven's direction combined European sensibilities about sexuality with Hollywood production values, creating a unique hybrid that influenced countless subsequent thrillers. Basic Instinct is now considered a classic of the genre, its controversy a reminder of cinema's ability to provoke, titillate, and disturb all at once. Love Camp 7. Long before the term video nasty entered public consciousness, Love Camp 7 had already shocked audiences and censors alike. Released in 1969, this exploitation film depicted the horrors of a Nazi-run women's prison camp. Its blend of sexual violence and sadism was so graphic that it was banned outright in the UK and several other countries for decades. The film purported to tell the story of female Allied agents captured and subjected to brutal treatment, but its actual purpose was clearly exploitative. The production featured graphic depictions of sexual violence and torture that bore no resemblance to serious historical drama or meaningful Holocaust commentary. Critics and censors alike condemned Love Camp 7 for its gratuitous exploitation of real, historical trauma. Many argued that the film crossed the line from provocative to simply obscene, contributing nothing to artistic discourse. Nevertheless, it became a cult item among collectors of extreme cinema, though it remained banned in many countries. Today, Love Camp 7 is often cited as a cautionary example of the dangers of using historical atrocity for entertainment. It remains banned in the UK, one of the rare films never granted certification, and stands as a stark reminder of cinema's capacity to both reflect and exploit humanity's darkest moments. Visions of Ecstasy. In the realm of banned films, few are as unique as Visions of Ecstasy, a 19-minute British short that holds the distinction of being the only movie ever banned in the UK for blasphemy. Directed by Nigel Wingrove, the film visualizes the ecstatic visions of the 16th century Spanish mystic Saint Teresa of Avila, blending religious imagery with overt sensuality. The film presents Saint Teresa's religious ecstasies through a surreal, dreamlike narrative that combines historical religious art with contemporary erotic imagery. Drawing inspiration from Bernini's famous sculpture, The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, and the saint's own written accounts, Wingrove created a work that explored the intersection between spiritual and sexual ecstasy. Upon its submission to the British Board of Film Classification, censors refused to grant it a certificate, citing the country's strict blasphemy laws. Legal battles raged for years, with the film's supporters arguing for artistic freedom and the abolition of outdated censorship laws. The ban was only lifted in 2012 after the blasphemy laws were finally repealed. Today, this movie is more than a curiosity. It's a reminder of how art, religion, and the law can collide, and how creative expression will always test the boundaries of what society is willing to tolerate. Funny Games. Michael Haneke's Funny Games is the rare film that seems designed to enrage its audience. Released in 1997, this Austrian psychological thriller follows a family terrorized by two young men in their vacation home. The violence is chilling, but it's Haneke's refusal to offer catharsis or easy answers that truly unsettles. What sets the film apart is Haneke's meta-theatrical approach, breaking the fourth wall multiple times and having the killers address the audience directly. The director even rewinds the film when events don't go according to the killer's plan, forcing viewers to confront their own voyeuristic participation in screen violence. Funny Games was banned in several countries for its intense psychological and physical violence. Critics and audiences alike found its unrelenting tone hard to take, and debates raged about whether the film condemned or glorified brutality. Unlike typical horror films that provide clear moral frameworks, Funny Games offers only nihilistic brutality without purpose. The killers are never punished, their motivations are never explained, and the family's suffering serves no greater narrative purpose. This rejection of conventional storytelling creates a deeply unsettling experience. Despite, or because of, its controversy, Funny Games was remade shot for shot in English by Haneke himself a decade later. Both versions remain deeply divisive, powerful examples of how cinema can be used to challenge its viewers at the deepest level. The Blue Lagoon. On the surface, The Blue Lagoon seems like a harmless romantic adventure set in a tropical paradise. But upon its release in 1980, the film drew fierce controversy over its sexualized depiction of teenagers. Starring Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins, it follows two young cousins who survive a shipwreck and come of age together on a deserted island. The story follows Emmeline and Richard as they mature from children into young adults, eventually discovering sexuality and love in their island paradise. While the premise suggested an innocent exploration of natural human development, the film's treatment of adolescent sexuality crossed boundaries that many found unacceptable. The film's nude scenes sparked outrage and censorship. Several countries banned or restricted The Blue Lagoon, while child advocacy groups called for boycotts and investigations into the filmmakers. The film's marketing campaign emphasized Shields' beauty and the exotic setting, creating promotional materials that critics argued sexualized a minor for commercial purposes. Poster images faced criticism for their suggestive nature, leading to advertising restrictions in many markets. Despite these issues, the film was a box office hit and became a pop culture phenomenon. In retrospect, The Blue Lagoon is often cited as an example of shifting standards in the portrayal of sexuality and adolescence. Cannibal Ferox. Often lumped as one of the most extreme films ever made, Cannibal Ferox, also known as Make Them Die Slowly, is infamous for its unflinching violence and real animal cruelty. Directed by Umberto Lenzi and released in 1981, the film tells the story of anthropologists who encounter a tribe of cannibals in the Amazon. The film was part of the brief but notorious cannibal boom in Italian cinema, but it distinguished itself through its exceptional brutality and complete disregard for taste or artistic merit. Lenzi seemed determined to create the most shocking film possible, incorporating real animal deaths and graphic special effects. The movie was banned in over 30 countries, including the UK, where it was prosecuted as a video nasty. The production's ethical problems extended beyond fictional content to include actual animal cruelty filmed for the camera. Censors demanded cuts before allowing a limited release, while animal rights activists condemned the production for its apparent cruelty. Critics dismissed it as exploitation garbage designed solely to shock audiences without providing any meaningful commentary on violence or human nature. Despite, or because of its notoriety, Cannibal Ferox has become a legend among horror fans. While its shock value remains high, the film also stands as a cautionary tale about the limits of exploitation cinema and the consequences of going too far in the name of entertainment. Anders als die Anderen. Long before Hollywood's production code, or even the talkies, German director Richard Oswald broke taboos with Anders als die Anderen, released in 1919. It's one of the world's first films to openly advocate for gay rights. The film tells the story of a famous violinist whose life is destroyed by blackmail under Germany's anti-homosexuality laws, at a time when homosexuality was criminalized and vilified. Working in collaboration with Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, a pioneering sexologist and gay rights activist, Oswald created a sophisticated drama that presented homosexuality as a natural variation rather than a moral failing. The film's message was nothing short of revolutionary for its time. Censors were quick to act, banning the film and destroying prints. Surviving copies were hidden away for decades by supporters who recognized their historical importance. The Nazis later used the film's existence as justification for even harsher crackdowns on homosexual individuals. In recent years, rediscovered footage has shown just how bold and compassionate this movie was for its time. Its legacy lives on in the ongoing fight for gay rights and representation on screen, proving that some artistic visions are so powerful they survive even systematic attempts at destruction. The Vanishing. George Sluizer's The Vanishing is a thriller that quietly shattered audience expectations and nerves. Released in 1988, this Dutch film tells the story of a man's obsessive search for his missing girlfriend. What sets The Vanishing apart is its chilling, nihilistic ending, which left many viewers shaken to their core. The film follows Rex Hoffman, whose girlfriend Saskia disappears at a highway rest stop, leaving no trace. As Rex becomes obsessed with discovering what happened, he begins receiving notes from her kidnapper, who offers to reveal her fate if Rex will experience exactly what she went through. While not officially banned in most countries, the film's disturbing content and lack of resolution led to restrictions and warnings in several markets. Audiences expecting a traditional crime thriller were instead confronted with existential horror. The film's approach to depicting evil is uniquely disturbing because the kidnapper is presented as an ordinary family man whose motivations remain incomprehensible. Critics praised the film's craftsmanship, but warned that its ending was not for the faint of heart. The film's reputation spread through word-of-mouth warnings about its devastating impact, with many viewers reporting that it haunted them for weeks after viewing. The Vanishing has since been recognized as one of the greatest psychological thrillers ever made. Its controversy lies not in what it shows, but in what it refuses to provide: comfort, closure, or easy answers. Titicut Follies. Frederick Wiseman's documentary, Titicut Follies, remains one of the most powerful exposés in film history. Released in 1967, this stark, unflinching look inside the Bridgewater State Hospital for the criminally insane in Massachusetts revealed scenes of neglect, humiliation, and abuse that shocked the world. Wiseman's camera captured patients being force-fed through nasal tubes, stripped naked and left in their own waste, and taunted during a talent show that gives the film its title. The documentary revealed a system where human dignity had been completely abandoned, with elderly patients left in freezing cells and mentally ill individuals subjected to ridicule. The state government swiftly moved to ban the film, claiming it violated patient privacy. But many suspected the real motive was to shield the public from the institution's brutality. For over 20 years, Titicut Follies was barred from general release, screened only for professionals in the legal and medical fields. The film's existence became a battleground for debates about censorship, ethics, and the power of documentary film. Legal battles over its release continued for years, with supporters arguing that the public had a right to see evidence of institutional abuse. When the ban was finally lifted in 1991, the audiences saw not just a historical record, but a call to action, proof of the need for transparency and reform in mental health care. Titicut Follies is now regarded as a milestone in cinema verite, a film whose uncomfortable truths forced a nation to reckon with the dark realities it would rather ignore. Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom. Pier Paolo Pasolini's final film represents perhaps the most controversial work ever created by a major filmmaker. This adaptation of the Marquis de Sade's notorious novel uses the framework of fascist Italy to explore the absolute corruption of power, featuring scenes of sexual violence and degradation so extreme that many found them unwatchable. The film transposes de Sade's story to 1944 Salo, where 4 fascist officials kidnap 18 young people and subject them to 120 days of escalating abuse. Pasolini structured the film in 4 segments based on Dante's Inferno, creating a descent through circles of increasing depravity. Upon its release in 1975, Salo was met with revulsion and censorship. Bans swept across Australia, the UK, New Zealand, and much of Europe. Even experienced film critics were known to flee theaters in horror. The film was prosecuted for obscenity in several countries, and for decades was available only through underground channels. Pasolini's intention was to create a political allegory about the dehumanizing effects of absolute power, using extreme imagery to force audiences to confront the reality of totalitarian control. The director saw the film as a metaphor for contemporary consumer capitalism, arguing that modern society had created new forms of fascism. Yet, despite its unflinching brutality, many critics defend Salo as a profound political statement, a warning about the corrupting nature of absolute power. To this day, Salo divides audiences like few other films. Some see it as art's bravest confrontation with evil, while others dismiss it as nihilistic depravity. But its legacy endures, challenging viewers to confront the extremes of human behavior, and sparking debates about censorship, trauma, and the purpose of cinema itself. Battle Royale. When it comes to films that shook the very foundations of censorship boards worldwide, Battle Royale stands in a league of its own. Directed by Kinji Fukasaku and released in 2000, this Japanese thriller redefined the boundaries of what cinema could depict, especially with regards to violence among youth. The film is set in a dystopian future where, as a form of social control, the government randomly selects a class of high school students, drops them onto a remote island, and forces them to fight to the death. The story follows Shuya Nanahara and his classmates as they're kidnapped, fitted with explosive collars, and given weapons ranging from machine guns to pot lids. They are told they have 3 days to kill each other or face execution, with only one survivor allowed to return home. From its earliest screenings, Battle Royale ignited a firestorm of controversy. Critics and lawmakers in Japan, Germany, the United States, and several other countries debated whether the film would inspire real-life violence among teenagers. Some viewed it as a chilling, necessary reflection of societal anxieties about youth violence and government overreach, while others saw it as gratuitous and dangerous. In Germany, the film faced years of legal battles before it was finally made available, and in many countries, it was given the most restrictive ratings or banned entirely for years. The controversy highlighted society's deep anxieties about youth violence and government authority. Yet beneath the surface shock value, Battle Royale is a sharp social commentary. It explores themes of trust, betrayal, the breakdown of societal rules, and the tragic consequences of authority unchecked by empathy. Director Fukasaku, who lived through the firebombing of Japan in World War II, brought a personal understanding of violence and survival to the story, infusing it with an intensity that feels frighteningly real. Baise-Moi. It is a film that, from its very title, declares war on polite society. Released in 2000, this raw, unfiltered story of two women on a vengeful and violence-fueled rampage ignited immediate and explosive controversy. Co-directed by Despentes and Trinh T, both of whom had backgrounds in underground culture, Baise-Moi unapologetically blurs the line between art house cinema and adult content. The film follows Manu and Nadine, two women from different backgrounds who meet after traumatic experiences. The director's decision to cast actual adult films actresses and include unsimulated intercourse scenes created a unique hybrid that defied conventional categorization. The film features unsimulated intercourse scenes and graphic violence, pushing the boundaries of what's permissible even in France's famously liberal film industry. Banned outright in countries like Australia and censored in its homeland, Baise-Moi was so shocking that France created a new 18+ rating specifically for its release. Critics were polarized. Some hailed it as a fierce feminist critique of patriarchal violence, while others condemned it as gratuitous and exploitative. Yet for all its provocation, Baise-Moi is more than just shock value. It's a howl of rage from society's margins, exposing the links between trauma, alienation, and rebellion. Natural-Born Killers. Oliver Stone's Natural-Born Killers is a hallucinatory descent into America's obsession with violence and celebrity. Released in 1994, this wildly stylized tale of Mickey and Mallory Knox, a pair of lovers who go on a spree, was as much an attack on media culture as it was a crime story. Stone's rapid-fire editing, psychedelic visuals, and dark humor made the film both a critique and a product of the chaos it depicted. The film follows the Knox couple as they kill 52 people during a cross-country rampage, becoming folk heroes through sensationalized media coverage. Stone's satirical approach included fake television shows and surreal fantasy sequences that blurred the line between reality and media representation. Almost instantly, Natural-Born Killers became one of the most controversial films of the decade. In Ireland and Australia, it was banned outright. Elsewhere, it faced heavy censorship and restrictions. The film's influence didn't stop at the cinema. Several real-life crimes were reportedly inspired by its characters, leading to lawsuits and renewed debates about the responsibility of filmmakers. But Stone's movie was more than just shock value. It was a razor-sharp commentary on a society addicted to sensationalism, where killers become celebrities and violence becomes entertainment. Today, Natural-Born Killers is seen as both a product and a critique of its time, a fever dream that challenged viewers to question their own complicity in the spectacle of violence. Pink Flamingos. If there's ever been a film that proudly wears the badge of offensive, it's John Waters' notorious Pink Flamingos. Released in 1972, this midnight movie didn't just break taboos, it trampled them with gleeful abandon. Starring the legendary drag queen Divine, Pink Flamingos chronicles a competition to be named the filthiest person alive. The film's plot follows Divine's character, Babs Johnson, as she defends her title against challengers Raymond and Connie Marble, who engage in increasingly depraved acts to claim the crown. What unfolds on screen are acts so vulgar, outrageous, and gleefully tasteless that they still spark shocked whispers decades later. The film's notorious final scene is the stuff of underground legend, inspiring both disgust and cult adoration. Banned in countries like Australia, Norway, and parts of Canada, Pink Flamingos quickly became the poster child for transgressive cinema. In the US, screenings were sometimes rated, and the film was the subject of obscenity hearings. But the outrage only fueled its legend. Audiences would pack midnight screenings, creating a raucous interactive experience that made the movie a rite of passage for lovers of counterculture. Waters deliberately created the film as an assault on middle-class sensibilities, using shock value as a tool of social commentary. Despite, or perhaps because of, its unrepentant shock value, Pink Flamingos is now hailed as a revolutionary work in queer and outsider cinema. Waters' fearless embrace of bad taste made the film a celebration of society's misfits and rebels. More than just a freak show, Pink Flamingos is a love letter to the idea that art should never apologize for being provocative. From the psychological terrors of Peeping Tom to the outrageous rebellions of Pink Flamingos, these 25 films represent more than just controversial entertainment. They're landmarks in the ongoing battle between artistic freedom and social control. Each one pushed boundaries that seemed unbreakable at the time, forcing audiences and authorities to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, power, sexuality, and violence. What's truly remarkable is how many of these once banned films are now considered masterpieces, taught in film schools and preserved in archives as important cultural artifacts. They remind us that today's shocking art often becomes tomorrow's accepted classics, and that attempts to suppress creative expression usually end up immortalizing the very works they seek to destroy. These movies didn't just challenge censors, they changed the entire landscape of what cinema could be and do. They proved that film has the power to spark riots, topple careers, change laws, and force societies to examine their deepest hypocrisies and fears. Most importantly, they demonstrated that art's greatest power lies not in comforting audiences, but in disturbing them enough to think, question, and grow. So, what do you think? Which of these forbidden films shocked you the most? Have you been brave enough to watch any of them? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts on these controversial classics. If you enjoyed this deep dive into cinema's darkest corners, smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking stories from Hollywood's hidden history. Trust us, we've got plenty more scandals, secrets, and banned masterpieces waiting to be uncovered. Until next time, keep questioning what you're told you can't see, because sometimes the forbidden fruit is exactly what we need to taste.